last few years have been a massively successful period for World Wrestling Entertainment, and that's largely down to many of the talents taking bumps in between the ropes being booked and presented refreshingly well, in the time since Triple H made himself comfy in the creative seat. That's not to say that absolutely every performer has excelled under Papa H's watch though, so with a nod over to the folks over at R2 Circle whose thread inspired this very list that you're watching right now, it's time to look at those performers WWE have actually frustratingly mishandled during this Paul Levesque era. So I'm Gareth, this is What Culture Wrestling, and here are 10 wrestlers Triple H's WWE has totally fumbled. Number 10, Karrion Kross. A performer who once seemed like a ready-made top talent when he first popped up in NXT back in 2020. Karrion Kross was a solid, occasionally intimidating force that you could easily see fitting right in on WWE's main roster. His entrance was that perfect combination of silly and dramatic. He definitely had the intensity box ticked, and he could hold his own in between the ropes too. But then the wheels well and truly fell off after being called up in 2021 and dressed like a bondage gladiator. Unsurprisingly, he was released before the end of that year. However, he soon became one of the first names Trips opted to bring back to the company when he became the new creative King of Kings. Rather than finally getting a chance to unleash a version of Kross similar to the one seen wrecking his way through the NXT roster though, Trips just slotted him in as an awkward third wheel during the Roman Reigns-Drew McIntyre program. The perennially gurning Stars spin-off feud with the Scotsman then did little for either man in the coming weeks, and it wasn't long before he settled into the role of jobber villain in the mid-card, whether flanked just by Scarlett or his new Final Testament faction. The end result has still largely been the same, an unmemorable loser of a character that not a single soul gives a damn about. Fumbled both in the McMahon and Levesque eras. Impressive stuff. Number 9, Andrade. Andrade's first few months back inside of a WWE ring have been, well, they've been a bit forgettable, haven't they? While his actual performances in between the ropes are typically a fun and hard-hitting time, that back elbow will never not be brutal to watch. I love it, just blah. The character itself hasn't really been moving in an interesting direction since hopping back over from AEW. His Royal Rumble return was a nice moment, sure, but after agreeing to sign with the Red Brand, WWE just dumped him into a few nothing matches against Apollo Crews and Giovanni Vinci, before squeezing him into the ongoing LWO Legado del Fantasma drama as a way of getting the star onto the WrestleMania 40 card. The closest thing to a storyline Trips has given his returning former NXT champion has consisted of numerous teams trying to recruit him to their faction, because we've never seen that before, and his recent not exactly captivating interactions with Legado on SmackDown also just feels like WWE once again choosing to lazily throw all their Latino wrestlers into another feud together. Now there's still time to turn it around and salvage these early fumbles before it's too late, but so far a lack of an intriguing plan for Andrade has left his WWE comeback largely feeling like a bit of a flop. Now I've got a quick question for you. What feud right now would you absolutely love to see on WWE TV in the next couple of months? Is it something to do with Andrade, something that's not just throwing all the Latino wrestlers into a thing together? Whatever it is, you let me know in the comment section down below and I will look through them and I will be like, yes, I agree, I want to see some of that. Number 8, Bobby Lashley. The 2020s have been a bit of a mixed bag for the almighty. Following on from winning WWE Championship gold a few times, defending that strap at WrestleMania 37, and picking up victories over the likes of Brock Lesnar, Drew McIntyre and Goldberg, Bobby Lashley would find himself moving down the card as he picked up the United States Championship in 2022. But in the time since dropping that title after 100 days of dominance, the one-time MMA fighter surprisingly hasn't really made much of an impact at all during the Triple H era. A disappointing pair of Lesnar clashes and missing out on Mania 39 altogether after his match with Bray Wyatt was scrapped all took away a ton of the momentum he'd built up over the last few years. And when WWE did actually try and give him something compelling to do over the last year, that soon backfired when fans took one look at Lashley and the Street Profits being presented as suited and booted heels and still cheered for the charismatic trio anyway. Because why wouldn't you? Look at him. The less said about their bland feud with the Final Testament, the better too. After finally proving himself capable of being the top guy WWE had wanted him to be all those years ago, watching a Lashley who's still in top condition just get lost in the mid-card as the leader of an aimless stable has been disappointing to say the least. Number 7, Elias Ezekiel. Triple H just clearly doesn't like fun, does he? One of the most unlikely of success stories to fall out of 2022 was that of Elias's younger brother. A freshly shaved babyface who went on to become a genuinely hot act for a spell, bouncing off of an increasingly exasperated Kevin Owens, and oblivious Ezekiel doing all he could to convince the world he wasn't the guitar-strumming drifter, and lighting up arenas with his fiery comebacks in between the ropes was as dumb as it was glorious. But not long after taking over creative duties, Trips decided he didn't want to hear Zeke speak anymore, and soon had him written off TV via Owens' apron powerbomb. The absolutely terrific Photoshop shot of the entire Elias clan just sitting around an injured Zeke's hospital bed was unfortunately the last we'd see of the unexpected icon. In the months that followed, the game called back the bearded guitarist gimmick that had already run out of steam, and Elias ultimately did a grand total of nothing before being released in September 2023. What a monumental waste of that rarest of things, a mid-card comedy character in WWE that's actually funny. Number 6, Omos. While he's likely never going to be a performer capable of consistently putting on 5-star classics, there is definitely still a place for a giant attraction in the world of professional wrestling. And they don't come much bigger than the mighty Omos. I'm gonna go Omos. In the wake of a few meaty collisions against the likes of Bobby Lashley, Braun Strowman and Brock Lesnar, and a pretty decent showing against Seth Rollins at Backlash 2023 though, Triple H and co decided to bring this monstrous experiment to an end. Sort of. He's mostly just been used in multi-person contests as a massive obstacle for the field to overcome throughout the Triple H era, with his only singles matches coming away from the camera on the live event circuit. Now sure, having him stay off TV for long spells definitely makes his arrivals in those aforementioned Royal Rumbles and Battle Royals feel a little more special, but it still feels like a bit of a waste of one of the biggest performers you'll find anywhere in the business at present. Now no one is asking for Omos to turn up on Raw or SmackDown and bulldoze his way to the WWE Championship, but not having him occasionally engage in an on-screen mini-feud with a plucky babyface you want to get over feels like a missed opportunity, really. Who doesn't enjoy watching David kick Goliath's ass? Cheers for checking out this video today, folks, and if you're enjoying what you're watching, then hit that subscribe button down below for more of this What Culture Wrestling stuff in your day. Number 5, Johnny Gargano. And speaking of plucky babyfaces, Johnny Gargano was once one of the greatest of the modern era. Down in NXT, Johnny Wrestling clawed his way to the top of the Black and Gold Mountain, eventually becoming the beloved heart and soul of that brand before finally leaving in 2021. Now Gargano had done everything there was to do in NXT, but he'd barely even scratched the surface on the main roster. However, after 2 years in the shadows, one of Papa H's favourite students finally made his return and properly joined the Monday Night Raw squad. And what came next was one of the most emotional, inspiring babyface runs of the last decade. It was something else. Well, that's what should have happened. Instead, this believable underdog just started acting like a bit of a cocky a-hole, as he turned into a silent Dexter Lumis's mouthpiece during his weird stalking/kidnapping storyline with The Miz. And by the time that dreadful program had concluded, Gargano had gone from being seen as a potential new babyface main roster star to an unfunny goofball most didn't really give a damn about. The sound of silence that met his 2023 Royal Rumble entrance was deafening. It got to the point where Trips had no choice but to reboot DIY as a desperate way of trying to get his NXT darlings over on the main roster. Number 4, Zoe Stark. There was a point there when it actually felt like Zoe Stark had a chance of becoming a real player in the main roster's women's division. After spending a decent amount of time working alongside Trish Stratus during her feud with Becky Lynch, and being the Hall of Famer's violence enforcer, Stark even ended up bagging herself a Women's World Championship match against Rhea Ripley at Survivor Series 2023. But in the months that followed that defeat at the hands of Mami, Stark has been annoyingly fumbled by Trips and the gang, rather than being moved into a compelling feud away from the title picture for a while before building the tremendous in-ring performer back up into a position where she could challenge again for singles gold. WWE just did what they always do. They chucked her into an uninspired tag team and booked her to lock up in many a heatless tag match on Raw. Now that Shayna Baszler unit could have actually turned into something moderately entertaining had WWE bothered to give them an actual feud to sink their teeth into. Instead, they both just gotten lost in the tag team shuffle on Monday night, with the Stark scene colliding with Becky Lynch in the main event of Raw, feeling a world away from the one who mostly just wrestles to silence nowadays. Number 3, Nikki Cross. Now this one is very much a fumbled so far kind of entry, with said Wyatt Six squad consisting of Bo Dallas, Dexter Lumis, Joe Gacy, Eric Rowan and Nikki Cross. But as of this moment, right here, right now, a quick look at that last performer's run in Triple H's WWE Playground tells the story of someone who has been completely mishandled. After choosing to bin off a superhero gimmick that had once been popular enough to fire her to a Money in the Bank and Raw Women's Championship Championship victory, Papa H decided to revert Kross back to an unhinged character similar to the one she played on his Black and Gold show. A chaotic return in 2022 was soon followed by an appearance inside of War Games, and that was about as interesting as the whole thing got. Though we do have her to thank for the death of the 24/7 title, so that's something. For much of 2023, however, she just wandered around in the background, staring off into the distance like the crazy lady WWE kept telling us she was. That, along with a weird stalker storyline with Candice LeRae, went absolutely nowhere. At least Kross has had a bit more success away from the squared circle, earning a master's degree in history and currently studying for a PhD in history. In other words, she's a clever lady. Here's hoping the whole Wyatt 6 stuff allows her the chance to do something a bit more stimulating than wandering around in a comatose state going forward, eh? Number 2, Cameron Grimes. This is a properly heartbreaking one. Anyone who witnessed the charismatic force known as Cameron Grimes strutting his stuff, regularly delivering in between the ropes, and just generally being one of the most entertaining characters developmental had to offer, understandably assumed that one-time Trevor Lee would crush it on a Raw or a SmackDown. His 2023 call-up felt like a long time coming, and things got off to a promising enough start, as he initially entered into a mini-feud with Baron Corbin on the Blue Show. Before long, though, Grimes went from exciting new personality to mid-card jobber, getting bested by everyone from Austin Theory to Bron Breakker on Friday nights. Outside of that early Corbin angle, it just felt like there was no real plan for the star that had everything needed to go straight to the moon. And after a brief going-nowhere partnership with Dragon Lee and not really being given the chance to be anything more than a guy who just makes others look great, Grimes was unceremoniously cut loose in April 2024. We've all seen the video, man, that was some sad stuff right there. Grimes got himself into great shape and was reportedly always trying to improve behind the scenes, but he was ultimately let down by a WWE system that somehow didn't know what to do with a gifted performer who possessed so much potential. He's gonna kill it on the indies, we know it. Number 1, Ricochet. Back when the one and only signed a deal with NXT in 2018, Ricochet was one of the hottest talents in all of wrestling. His utterly ridiculous athleticism, innovative high-flying maneuvers, and the sheer speed of some of the breathless work he unleashed in between the ropes established him as one of the most influential performers of his generation. And the idea of him bringing all that to a WWE ring was fascinating. After a decent spell in developmental, though, Ricochet unbelievably just ended up becoming a part of the furniture after jumping up to the main roster. A talent who admittedly wasn't the strongest on the mic, but was still capable of blowing minds with freakish ease with insane top rope attacks and superhuman agility, was completely wasted in generic WWE-style contests. But that would all change once Papa H was in control of the former Intercontinental Champion's creative, right? Sure, he was presented as being slightly less useless and given a little more of the spotlight during an occasionally exhilarating rivalry with Logan Paul. I mean, their Money in the Bank 2023 table bump was the best kind of terrifying, I love it. After that summer 2023 program had concluded, though, it was just depressingly back to being another reliable name in the mid-card for Ricochet. Trips had the chance to finally fully let this one-of-a-kind worker off the leash, and just continue to largely underutilize one of the greatest high flyers of modern times. Maybe it's time to spread your wings again, Ricochet, go do you. If you've enjoyed this list today, my friends, then do I have another list for you. Just go and check out this 10 reasons WWE's best era is secretly its worst era one too. You'll have a great time, I promise. Click it, thank me later, bye bye.